There are so many wonderful books in the world waiting to be read, and so many people, like me, waiting for the motivation to read one. Waiting for that next book to swallow up their time. And I think a great way to get there is to set some goals. But I do believe it's not really about how much you read. It's more about making sure that you end up reading books that you're really gonna love. So with that in mind, let's just have a chill afternoon and plan our reading for 2024. Make a list of books we want to read, set some reading goals. Just love sitting and planning things. Getting to the plan is a whole other thing, okay? My hobby is just planning things. That's an activity in itself. Now, one of the things that you can do to change up your reading in the next year is actually taking a look at the sponsor of today, which is a book of the month. Maybe you're overwhelmed with all of the new books that are coming out and all of the popular things you want to read, and you kind of just want someone to tell you what the best things are to read that month. Book of the month is for you because their team curates a list. Like, they go through hundreds of new titles every month and curate a perfect list of new releases from debut and up-and-coming authors that you then get to choose one from that gets sent to your door in this cute little blue box. So it's an easier decision-making process for you, and you also get to discover new and up-and-coming authors and genres that you might otherwise not have found out about. So for example, this month I chose Interesting Facts About Space by Emily Austen, like a literary novel, but mostly it's supposed to be very humorous and quirky, but also beautiful, and that is something I want to get into a little bit more this year. And you can also get an add-on if you want, and this month a great option they had was Rebecca Ross's Ruthless Vows, which is a sequel to Divine Rivals, which I really enjoyed last year. But you know, maybe physical books isn't really your thing. They now also offer audiobooks, which you can choose, download, and listen to in their app. For a limited time, you can get your first Book of the Month book for only $5 if you use the code RESET, and the shipping is completely free. So check out Book of the Month with the link in the description and make sure you use the code RESET. Before we get into planning, I just wanna talk a little bit about the reading goal, the Goodreads goal, and why I tend to never set a reading goal. If you don't know, a lot of people at the beginning of the year set a reading goal, or on Goodreads you can set your own Goodreads goal of how many books you want to read that year. I personally haven't done this in years because I'm just not really a fan of this idea that you need to read as much as possible. And I think if you're on social media a lot and you see all these people that reads like hundreds of books every year, it can make you feel like you should also be doing that, and you should be setting yourself a goal to also achieve like a certain high number of books to read in a year. And I know that setting a reading goal works for some people, but I just want to talk about why I personally don't. So the first reason why I personally don't set a reading goal is because reading is a hobby for me and not homework. If I start putting pressure on something, it immediately sucks out all of the joy for me. So that's why, like, that's just how my brain works. So that's why I know I shouldn't be setting any sort of goal. The second, I think, more important reason is that there are other hobbies as well. I don't know, maybe this is a little controversial, but I think if you set a reading goal, you are automatically going to prioritize reading over your other hobbies. And that may be your goal, but I personally don't like putting a hierarchy to my hobbies. You know, I don't think that reading is somehow more valuable than any of my other hobbies. Like, as long as I'm indulging in my hobbies and relaxing, that's good in my book. I don't want to make reading the superior hobby and then all my other hobbies the kind of more inferior one. Yes, I do believe that reading is, you know, a better pastime than just scrolling on social media or mindlessly watching TV, but honestly, if I spend an evening going to the cinema or drawing, or, you know, just playing Zelda video games, which honestly is a lot of my evenings. I don't want to feel guilty that I didn't spend that time working on my Goodreads goal, because I still spent that time on a hobby doing something that I love. And I think that's what is most important. And I think my biggest reason for not setting a Goodreads goal is that it prioritizes the number of books read over the actual reading itself. Something that I see very often is that towards the end of the year, people start reading a lot of like short books and graphic novels so they can still reach their Goodreads goal. And I've nothing against short books, by the way, but I do think it's a shame if you're not reading that longer book on your shelf that you really want to read just because it's not going to help you with your Goodreads goal. And I think if you're trying to incorporate reading more into your life, setting a numbers goal is, I think, less effective than setting a more qualitative goal. Like, how are you going to make sure you read more often, or what kind of a routine are you going to set? For example, I do want to read more often because I just haven't been getting to the books that I really want to read lately. So I do want to set some goals to get myself into reading a little bit more, but just setting like a number, I don't think it's gonna effectively get me there. It's just gonna make me stressed. So let's set some qualitative reading goals together, and I write all my notes down digitally, so let's hop on over to my computer to do the little planning. Yeah. Okay, let's set some goals. Please don't mind the mess in the background. We're talking about reading goals today, okay? Not personal goals. I made a new page in Notion because I use Notion, but obviously you can use whatever you want. A notebook, a reading journal, the notes app on your phone, anything you like. And I just kind of created a cute little space to write down my goals. So one of the goals I actually already wrote down in my art journal. I made a little spread with like personal goals. They're personal, they're secret, okay? I did write down one reading related goal, and I wrote down, okay, this is gonna sound a little bit pretentious, read what inspires. And what I mean with that is I kind of want to read more that, well, inspires, that I feel like fills my cup a little bit more interesting ideas or something new. Yeah, what do I mean with that actually? That's a very good question. What did I mean with that? I'm just gonna write it down. Read what inspires. I think it just means that I want to read like a little bit more nonfiction, a little bit more classics, because I really did not do that last year, even though I did set out to do that. Shall we look at like the goals I set last year? Okay, this is my general books page. Here are the goals that I set last year. Read more books that make me learn something new. Didn't really do that. If you look at my TBR priority that I made last year, so these are titles that I really wanted to prioritize last year, you can see that like all of these like classics and nonfiction I just didn't get to. So basically we're just gonna do that again as a goal for this year. My other goal was to find more favorite books, books with atmosphere, fairy tale vibes, dark vibes. I did read a ton of that this year, so that went well. And then actually read the books I already own. Well, I definitely read some books I already owned, but now there's new ones. It's a cycle that never stops, I think. So back to the 2024 reading goals. I'm just summarizing that as I want to read more what inspires. For example, a book that I'm currently reading that I got in December is Susan Sontag's essays. This is the essay collection Against Interpretation and Other Essays, because I heard about it in a podcast and it sounded super interesting. She talks about like art criticism and literature criticism, and I have these other essay collections. These one by Angela Davis and Audre Lorde on like feminist issues. All of these like Penguin essay collections that I've been trying to get to, and I think what's been stopping me from reading these is because you tend to not really read an essay collection like front to back. I don't know, maybe people do that, but I don't do that. So you don't really get to cross them off pretty quickly. And this is another reason why this like reading goal doesn't really work, because it's really focused on like finishing the entire book and then like being able to cross it off. But I want to just incorporate reading an essay here and there instead of being like, now I'm gonna read this entire book. So I already started on Susan Sontag, so this is just gonna be on my nightstand for a while. What more do I want? Oh, I want to read read less books because of the internet. This is gonna sound a little weird. Basically what I mean with this is last year, I think so many of the books that I read, I think about a third of the books I read because they were really popular or a lot of people were talking about it and I was curious, so I picked it up. And instead this year I just really want to focus on picking up books because they sound interesting to me, because if I'm only ever picking up books because I'm curious what the hype is about, I just end up reading a lot of books that I find kind of mediocre, and that's kind of what happened last year, so I want to avoid that. And then I think my last goal, and I think this is specifically a goal that is going to be more useful than just setting like a number of books that you want to read, is a goal regarding when you want to read. So I really want to read more during breakfast. Right? That is a way that I think I'm going to just create space for myself to actually get to the books that I want to read. Instead of just setting a number, I'm setting a goal on how to actually get there. I recently got an e-reader about a month ago, 2 months ago now maybe. Amazing, because now I can read, just put this down, and then I can eat and use my hands while reading, and you don't have to worry with like a book that's gonna flop back down. Changed my life. So now I can actually read while having breakfast. Sometimes it's the little things that just make a big change. And I thought, you know, instead of always having my breakfast with a YouTube video, which I still want to do from time to time because I love watching YouTube, sometimes I can just start my morning with reading. This probably sounds really like a weird goal to all those people that already always read while they eat, but it's revolutionary to me. And I used to always read before going to bed. That was kind of my routine, but because I go to bed way too late very often, I end up reading 5 pages and then thinking, okay, Leonie, you really need to go to bed right now. So instead, maybe I should try reading during breakfast. I think that's a nice goal to set for myself. Okay, now that we've set a few goals, let's add more things to this empty page. So what I like to add is a TBR priority list. A TBR is a to be read list, which I always keep. Down here I just have a list of books. Every single time that I come across a book that sounds interesting, I just put it into this TBR list that I keep. But here I really want to make a curated version of that with books I really want to prioritize. So the first one I can put onto that is Susan Sontag's essays, Against Interpretation and Other Essays. Let's see if there are some other books that I want to prioritize. The book I'm currently reading is Wuthering Heights, so obviously I want to finish that, so we're gonna put that on here as well. Ooh, let me show you some of the books that I got for Christmas. I've been really wanting to get into Angela Carter's fairy tales because I know she writes really dark and atmospheric versions of fairy tales, which is totally my thing. I love it when the woods are dark and the main characters are evil girls. So I got Angela Carter's book of fairy tales, which I've already read a bunch from, and then also The Bloody Chamber and Other Stories. And I really want to get through this one from front to back. This one, there's like hundreds of fairy tales in there. It's more like a once in a while kind of read. But these, especially The Bloody Chamber, is like a classic retelling of Bluebeard by her, gothic retelling of Bluebeard. I really want to get to this one this year. So we're gonna put it on the list as well. Let's see if there's any books I didn't read last year that I want to put onto this year. This is last year. Yeah, these are all books I still want to read. All of these I still want to get to. I am actually also currently reading A Dowry of Blood. So I will probably finish that soon, but the progress has been very, very slow. Okay, let's go to my little TBR list. Anything from here that I really want to prioritize. Like a lot of these books I definitely want to read. The question is just which ones do I really want to prioritize? I think I'm just gonna say Our Share of Night. This is a book by Mariana Enriquez. She's an Argentinian author, and I know that this book is about, I think, a child and a father that end up in some kind of cult. And you guys know that those just really are my type of stories, so putting that on here as well. You know what? I think I'm not gonna put too much pressure on myself. That's 12 books on the list, so that's like a third of what I'll probably end up reading. No, I do also want to put this one, What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher, because I really want to read more T. Kingfisher after reading Nettle and Bone. Oh, let me go through my audiobook app. Sometimes I forget that I can also listen to audiobooks. I use Storytel and you can just like save books on there that sound interesting to you. So let me just write down some that I think I really want to get to this year. Yes, this one. Word Slut by Amanda Montell is a book about feminist use of language. I read Cultish by her. It was one of my most enjoyed books of last year. So I also really want to read her other book, Word Sluts. And then I think I want to read one of the most often recommended books for me. When I made my favorite books of all time video a few months ago, a lot of you guys were super nice to recommend books to me based on my favorite list, which I really appreciated. But there was one title that was overwhelmingly mentioned, that almost everyone who tried to recommend books to me mentioned. And I think maybe this year's the year that I read that series. And that is... Oh, I got logged out. Okay, so Notion just completely crashed. I guess that's the downside to using a digital platform. But I was able to get into it on my iPad. The book I was talking about was The Raven Boys, which is a book I tried to get into a while ago, years ago, couldn't get into, but I'm willing to give it another try because it's also supposed to be like very whimsical, found family, atmospheric, and that is indeed my thing. And then this is the final page as shown to you on my iPad. The only thing that is left for us is something that's also very important, and that is taking a look at new releases that are gonna be coming out somewhere in the next year that I want to make sure I don't forget about, because there are some big authors that are coming out with super exciting new books that I just want to read so bad. Okay, so we're kind of back in this corner. Last thing I want to talk about is the new releases that I'm really excited about. I used to have like really long lists of all of the books that would come out that sound cool, but I want to keep it short and succinct, you know? Definitely not pronouncing that word right, but that's okay. I have 4 books here that I'm really excited about. The first one is The Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping by Sangu Mandana. This is from the same author who wrote The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches, which I adored last year. It is about a witch who has lost her power and spends her days helping in an inn. And she finds this old book that may contain the secrets to her getting back her powers, but she doesn't really understand the book, so she gets the help of this really attractive historian that she also happened to have had like a one-night stand with a year ago. I love romances between two characters that have like a history together, like a really brief history, not like a whole relationship history, but just like a really brief history, like a one-night stand. I love that. I love that trope. So I just know that this is going to be another one to pull on the heartstrings. Then of course we have the familiar the new book by Leigh Bardugo. This is going to be a standalone by her, which I'm so excited about. I just love standalones. And this one is going to take place in Madrid. And I know it's really going to go into Leigh Bardugo's own family history. Like, that's kind of what she used as research for writing this kind of historical, magical, occult novel. She has also herself described this book as her most character-driven and romantic book yet. I think I will be deceased when this comes out. Then of course I'm also super excited for The Prisoner's Throne, which is the sequel and I think also the final book after The Stolen Heir by Holly Black. I just love this little spin-off in the same series as The Cruel Prince. I love our weird, angry little witchy main character. I love this quest storyline that the characters are on. I have to like refresh my brain on what happened in the first book. The only thing I remember is that it really ended on a huge plot twist. I don't remember what the plot twist was, but I remember being very shaken. So I'll probably just have to read a little summary of the book somewhere. But I'm very excited for the sequel. And then the last book I'm very excited about is the only one here that is from an author that I haven't read anything from yet. But it is a well-known author. It is A Tempest of Tea by Hafsa Faizal. So Hafsa Faizal has written the We Hunt the Flame books, which I heard were pretty good. I just haven't read them myself. And A Tempest of Tea is a new, I think also YA fantasy? Yeah, young adult fantasy duology. So what this is about, oh my god, the concept of this book. It is about a main character who's an orphan girl. She has this prestigious tea room that is also like a hub of underground criminality, and she has her own crew of vampires and they're gonna go on a heist. This is like if Kes Brecker, instead of like, what did he have? Like a cafe, like a bar. Instead of that, he had a tea room. And all of the crows are vampires. Come on. Come on. That sounds amazing. I am always a sucker for young adult fantasies with a heist and a crew of misfits. So yes, I will be reading this one. So I'm gonna put all of these new releases also in my 2024 reading goals page to kind of keep track of it, like mentally make sure I keep in mind that these books come out with their release dates also on there as well. And then this is the final page. It's really simple, but honestly, that's all you need. You don't have to make it super complicated. At least that's not my preference. Let me know if there is a book that you're super excited about for the next year that I missed or that I should definitely be reading. What do you think of me reading The Raven Boys? Let me know. If you're excited about me reading all these books and you want to make sure you don't miss it when I talk about them, make sure you subscribe to my channel. And last but not least, I want to give a thank you to all of my patrons with a special shout out to all of my elite Patreon members that you can see here, and a warm welcome to our newest members, Trace Carter and Danny Soto. Welcome. I really hope you guys enjoyed this slightly more laid back video. I really hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you soon with another video very soon. Goodbye.